Julius Malema, this man here, you know him, right? Yeah. You most likely like him if you are an Africanist or whatever. Anyway, Julius Malema made a speech which is very, very interesting. And I have to share this with you. Okay, let's watch and make a comment on top of it. Let's go.
The people who are committing all these crimes are accompanied by the police. And the state broadcaster and the mainstream media is giving them unlimited airtime to spread hate and to incite violence. We've seen in many videos where people manhandle other people in the presence of the police, take them from one building to the other in the name of looking for drugs in the presence of the police. And in terms of the law of South Africa, once you handle me like that, if you are not a law enforcement officer, that is manhandling. We've seen the repeat, at least in the context of South Africa, a repeat of a similar thing, where black-on-black violence was sponsored by the state.
Okay. Now, very interesting. I think you heard that and you're probably asking yourself questions. This is the same thing that's happened during apartheid, black on black hurting each other. What does that mean? And I would like to clarify this for most of us. I mean, a lot of people I know don't quite understand the depth of it. And I'm not going to speak out of me, and I want us to read through what's written, okay? So what happened back in the time? Back in time, black people in South Africa did hurt each other bad. Yes, I know you never heard about this, but unfortunately, yeah, it's the truth. So back in time, the biggest fighting was between the two black political parties, and this was managed and sponsored by who? You can imagine. Malema's reminding us about what's happened in the past. Let me read again. The ANC, the African National Congress, which you probably know about, was led by who? Nelson Mandela. And the IFP, this one right here, was led by Mangosuthu Buthelezi, mostly Zulu people. The fighting was very bad in 1980s and 1990s, especially where in KwaZulu-Natal, as you can see on the map. This is KwaZulu-Natal. KwaZulu-Natal is the home of the Zulus. You heard of Shaka Zulu? Yeah, that's where he's from, okay? That's where most of the mayhem was happening. Let's continue. So as you can see, Malema is reminding us that this is the same modus operandi. It's something that's happened in the past before. Divide to conquer.
Handling this issue in a manner that it deserves in terms of the law enforcement agencies.
Thank you very much. I think that we should all accept that the violence is a state-sponsored violence, because the people who are committing all these crimes are accompanied by the police. And the state broadcaster and the mainstream media is giving them unlimited airtime to spread hate and to incite violence. We've seen in many videos where people manhandle other people in the presence of the police, take them from one building to the other in the name of looking for drugs in the presence of the police. And in terms of the law of South Africa, once you handle me like that, if you are not a law enforcement officer, that is manhandling. It can even amount to common assault or even assault itself. And police are duty-bound to intervene and make sure that no civilian act like he is a law enforcement officer if that person is not. We've seen the repeat, at least in the context of South Africa, a repeat of a similar thing, where black-on-black violence was sponsored by the state. It happened in the same areas where these xenophobic attacks are happening. They use the same tribal group to perpetuate hate on each other. The only difference here is that we've not yet seen the trucks carrying weapons to go and give those people to continue killing each other. When a state was confronted with the reality of a democratization of South Africa, when they didn't know how to handle this black resistance, they said blacks must go and attack other black people. And we must not even be tempted to sugarcoat it. It is exactly the repeat. What did the SABC do at that time? It broadcasted those activities the same way it's doing it now, and never censored them, with a hope that it will spread across all over South Africa. We are told that we're supposed to have the best policing in KZN, which is able to nip this thing on the bud, but it's not doing it. If anything, they are running. I was saying to the SG of the EFF, you can go to all the videos of the EFF. When we try to enter any building by force, in less than 2 minutes, they would have used a stun grenade. You have never seen police using stun grenades against these people who are perpetuating hatred amongst Africans. If anything, police are running with them to go and commit other crimes on the other side, instead of saying to them, yes, you have a right to gather, but you are now unruly. And because you are unruly, you are going to have to disperse. No, they don't say that. They encourage them to continue to the next building, to the next this and all of that. So we cannot, you want to use our economic situation to justify a hatred. There's always been a contestation of resources. It has always been like that, but we're able to coexist even when resources have been so limited. Let's take, Sophie, for instance, the language called Fanagalo. It didn't happen now. It happened way before the EFF was formed, with a discovery of diamond and later discovery of gold, when the white Afrikaners started refusing to work underground and saying the British are undermining them. They started looking for black labor, and then that's when they started bringing the migrants into our country. And because they could not, to demonstrate that they were not of the same language, they had to develop a language which will make it easier for them to communicate. All of this Southern Africa has built this economy that we are being told now. These people are taking our resources away. There's no building in Johannesburg or in any area where there's development, a bridge or a dam that was built in this country without the hands of Zimbabweans, Mozambicans, Malawians, and anyone else you can think of, because our economy has always been dependent on neighboring countries to give us that kind of a support. What do we do with these people that Godrich was speaking about, who have their king this side and have the other nation that side? What do we do with these people who have their children here? When you chase away a person from Lesotho, what must we do with that? After chasing those people, who's going to support these children? Because we are related, not by rhetoric. Literally, we are related. Many people spend many weekends in Lesotho going to weddings, Botswana, Mozambique, Zimbabwe. The same thing with Zimbabweans coming this side and all of that. We have children together. We've got businesses together. We've gone to school now together. And then how are we going to hate these people and claim that we love their children? A man from Ghana was beaten in front of cameras. Till to date, we're not told who got arrested for that. But Duduzile Zuma is in court for writing on Twitter, "We see you." That's her charge. That's what she's being charged for. To see that because the Zuma uprising that happened in July was not state-sponsored, there is an action against the people who participated there, including the so-called Ngizwe, who got arrested for incitement for that July 26. Today, we've got people who are announcing before, not the people who are speaking after. They say, on the 30th of this, there's going to be hate. All of you must leave, and nothing happens. It's because we agree with it. There is something in law we can use to stop the spreading of that hate. Where are the NGOs? Where is the AfriForum? Where are all these people to take these people to court and say, this is incitement of violence, this is a hate speech, and so on and so on? We've never seen anything of that, because they are all in cahoots to distract us from fighting the genuine struggle of reclaiming the land, the economy, and confronting the challenges of unemployment. Because where we need to take this fight for the unemployment It's exactly where we're being distracted from. Or no, you are not unemployed because of us. Go to these Africans who are taking your jobs. Ghanaians, 300 of them have left. Someone must tell me how many South Africans got those jobs that were taken by Ghanaians. Because Ghanaians are gone now, 300 of them. How many 300 of jobs were created after the Ghanaians have left? So it's just a myth, it's a lie, which they are using to further divide us, to perpetuate colonial divisions that were created in the past. And you say, no, I hate colonialism. I was a student in Feast Must Fall. We must decolonize education. We must decolonize this, we must decolonize that. But the borders must remain. The borders are actually the most practical thing that was brought about by colonialism. And you can't say you are against colonialism, but you support the borders. It's never consistent like that.
Well, let's look at Ghana, the response. You made mention of an example of this incident happening some years ago between Ghana and Nigeria. That's the same thing Begi said this weekend, that this is not something new. The response of Ghana, was it a right way to respond, and now pushing that this matter be on the agenda of the AU?
It needs to go to the AU. The Ghana response was not necessary because it now creates an impression that we are all like that, when it is a certain section of our society that needs to be contained by law enforcement. And one Ghanaian lady was saying, you see, the problem is, and I wouldn't have taken this option. The problem is we're being beaten in front of the police and the police are not doing anything. That's the problem. And when this opportunity came for me to leave, I left, because if the police can't defend me, it means the state is in agreement with the people who are beating me. So we think it was too quick. We'll still resolve this. And President of Ghana should have given us, some time to really deal with this matter. And we'll get to the bottom of it. We hope they will come back to their senses. We don't have to respond the same way they did. We need to pursue the diplomatic engagements with Ghana until we find one another. We don't think Ghana responded in a manner that really reinforces dialogue and diplomatic engagements. It actually creates a very bad, extreme situation, which is not. It's a selected few, and we are pursuing and persuading government to still act on those few. And we're saying to them, they must give us some time, they must be patient, and those who don't feel safe, especially the legally documented Ghanaians, should be able to run to police stations for safety, and then they will be directed to rightful places where they will be secured. But, it's an emotional issue for many of them, understandably so, but the reaction of government should have been, postponed a bit to give us an opportunity to deal with what is happening here in South Africa.
My last question, I'm sure the colleagues would also want to talk about local issues. The issue here, you also have genuine concerns by South Africans. 30 years on, you still have these challenges. Yes, opportunists will use these challenges and problems of socio-economic conditions, particularly during this time where there's campaigning, there's elections. But why are we failing to address the genuine concerns of South Africans as it relates to jobs, particularly young people, service delivery? Why? What's the problem?
If I'm responsible to create jobs, and then someone redirect that energy to say, no, I'm unemployed, not because the politicians don't create jobs, but because some Ghanaian, Mozambican, DRC, Congolese has taken a job, and that is responsibility is being moved from me to someone else, it will excite me, because at least I'm not in the limelight at that moment that I've failed. So the state will enjoy this kind of engagement because a focus has been shifted from them. and directed to a wrong section of our society. We can never create jobs. We can speak until we are tired, until we take a decision to industrialize. You can't industrialize without beneficiation. You can't beneficiate that which you do not own. Those who own the mineral resources that are supposed to create jobs in South Africa are the ones who are going to extract the mineral resources, take them raw as they are to outside the country. So we firstly have to take over that which belongs to us and then use that to create jobs. That's number one. Number two, you cannot create jobs with the highest level of corruption. We were told Ramaphosa is going to reduce corruption. It became worse. We thought it was worse. GNU came. It became even worse and worse with the participation of the DA in increasing the hands that are stealing from us. So today, if there is no money budgeted for this infrastructural development, for this kind of opportunities that can create jobs, that money is in the pockets of politicians, you can be rest assured there's not going to be jobs. There is no massive infrastructural development in South Africa that is aiming at creating jobs. They are not having any plan, none whatsoever, to create, to grow the economy. If you go into agriculture, it is not. At some point, it was an exciting thing. Of course, there was some corruption there. We're told people are being given farms, people are being given livestock, and so on and so forth. Those kind of programs are no longer the meaning, even in the agricultural sector, where you used to absorb, the semi-illiterate laborers were also lacking in that regard. So there is a problem of leadership. And leadership is not interested, except that it is accumulating, and very soon they will be out of power. The ANC has accepted. Matthew Posa tells you, he says, I'm a member of the ANC in good standing. If we do well, we're going to get 26%. So that's how they feel. And if you get ANC members who hear this information and have not accumulated anything, they are going to want to accumulate as much as they can, because a bell has rang that it is about to be out of school, and therefore take whatever you can take and then leave. So that's where we find ourselves. We are going to be in a much, much more deeper crisis, with the ANC losing power, because more money will be stolen, no money will be focused on development of South Africa, and there will not be a political will to transform the patterns of ownership in the economy of South Africa.